Hello, religion class. Welcome to week 6. This is hopefully going to be a little shorter today because I have another video that I want you to watch on almsgiving for your new service project. So we'll try to go through this. Now, we are starting Hinduism this week. We're rolling through because we got less time now. So like I said, we are going to have a new service hours assignment called alms. I'm going to post the video as well for that. And this is going to go to all religion classes, basically on what almsgiving is and why we're kind of changing it and things like that. So each week, I want you to continue to complete alms for your service. So I've posted them all in, it's labeled Christian service and alms section of the classwork. But basically, we're asking you to serve at home. So just small things, and I'll give you some ideas of what that'll look like, okay? So for the rack this week, we are starting Hinduism. So there's 2 movies I want you to watch. One, what is the history of Hinduism? And 2, All Alone Together, helping each other during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason for this is because we're actually going to talk about the concept of Dharma today, which comes from Hinduism. So for alms, for something that I want you to look at, do something outside this week to make someone smile. It's supposed to be beautiful. You could look at raking the leaves in your backyard, creating a chalk message on your sidewalk, something that you can leave on someone's doorstep or car window to surprise them. Make sure you practice physical distancing when you're outside. But this is also going to help you with your assignment this week. And your assignment this week is going to be, you've all heard of karma, and it's a Google Doc, okay? So first things first, I'll go through the PowerPoint. Okay, so Hinduism. So this is going to be, again, a very brief history of Hinduism in like 10 minutes. So the world is home to over 900 million Hindus. Most of them live in India, but there is large numbers in some of the surrounding areas, like in Nepal and Bangladesh. And Hinduism has spread with immigration to Canada. And it's the 3rd largest religion in the world after Christianity and Islam. And it is actually the 4th largest within Canada. Okay? So it is just under 1%, but like I said, it's the 4th most false religion. Now, Christianity is biggest, then Islam, then Judaism. But the majority of Hindus within Canada were actually born elsewhere. They weren't born within Canada. Most of them live in Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. Ontario and Quebec make sense because that's where a lot of immigrants generally come straight to Canada. Manitoba and Saskatchewan, it's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's because a lot of Hindu immigrants came there and then started a community, and then more people kind of grew and went there. But it's interesting there. Hinduism is very different than Christianity. There is no like unified hierarchy like Roman Catholicism. There's no formal church. There's no single authority. There's no fixed doctrine. It's very, very different, okay? It's one of the oldest religions in the world. There's 3 periods that it goes over. The pre-Vedic period, which is from about 2500 to 1500 BCE, so before the time of Christ. It was in the Indus River Valley, which this is a map here. So this is the Indus River. And so it was considered very fertile. It was a very important part of the area. And so most people lived in cities there. And they worshipped a mother goddess. And so that's kind of where Hinduism began, was in this area. And then the Vedic period from 1500 BCE to 600 BC. So this is named because the first writings of Hinduism actually came out during this period, and they were called the Vedas, which is why we have the Vedic period. So the writings were probably just collected at this time. They don't know if they were actually written at this time, but it's kind of hard to tell. There's a lot of focus on prayer and elements of nature, especially within the Indus River Valley, and then animal sacrifices. And then there's the Upanishadic period, which began around 600 BCE. So this is when Hinduism really accepted the Vedas. They added the Upanishads, which are another sacred text, and they're kind of interpretations of what the Vedas actually means. And so it changed its focus from sacrifices, of human sacrifices, to this mother goddess, to really focus on the inner self and what that means. Okay. Now, Hinduism really focuses on a lot of harmony. It's highly tolerant of other religions. It's kind of like you do your thing, I do my thing. It had the earliest sacred text that they have is actually 4,000 years old, and it's called the Rig Veda. But the general goal of Hinduism is to find salvation, which is the general goal of most religions, to kind of find that salvation after we die. So For most Hindus, salvation is not attainable within their lifetime. They believe in reincarnation. So basically, the idea that when you die, you're kind of reborn into a new life, and then you kind of have another shot. And so there's lots of opportunities to achieve salvation. So if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, it's kind of like, okay. Now, the term for this salvation, this release, is actually called moksha. So it's kind of like our concept of like souls going up into heaven is moksha. So if you attain moksha, if you attain salvation, then you've basically been returned to the sacred source. And we're going to talk more about that next week when we kind of talk about the gods and goddesses of Hinduism. I'm just going to briefly introduce them this week. But the whole idea is that like you've kind of returned to that initial spark and you don't have to go through things again. Monism is another concept within Hinduism. It's basically the idea that everything in the world shares a common essence, and this is called Brahman. And so this is that source of the universe. So when you're reincarnated, when you're not reincarnated, when you've returned back to, when you've achieved moksha and you've achieved that release, that's when you go back to this like Brahman concept, and that's that common essence. And so you've returned to that. You don't get reincarnated again. So polytheism, just as a very kind of brief introduction, because like I said, next week we'll talk about the Hindus, gods and goddesses more. So tradition has that Hinduism actually has 330 million gods and goddesses, which is a lot considering, we have one and Jews have one and Islam has one. And so it's polytheistic, which means that there's many gods, obviously. But the whole idea is that like think about the ocean, okay? All of the water in our world is interconnected. So you might be surfing on the Pacific in Hawaii, someone's sailing in the Atlantic in Newfoundland. They're thousands of miles away. Different oceans, they have different names, but ultimately they all form one body of water. Eventually, they all kind of connect up. And that's the whole idea with Hinduism. Everything's an extension of this ultimate reality of that source of Brahman, okay? So these are the three main gods, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. And again, we'll talk about them more next week. So this is just kind of to introduce you to them. So it's helpful for humans to have this many gods and goddesses because it kind of gives people a personal access point with the divine. And so some like villages, like just a couple kilometers apart, will have like their own individual god, which is kind of neat because it really changes based on what you need or what your community needs and things like that. And so really you're free to worship any god or goddess or multiple ones as you like. And so most people usually have like one big god that they worship, and then they'll also have smaller versions, okay? And what I want to get into this week is the whole idea of the cycle of the universe. So within the West, we generally focus on like a linear progression of time. And so like we have the 6 days of creation, we have the Big Bang Theory, and like this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Hinduism's not like that. It charts its time in cycles and it's repeating itself endlessly. So technically, we have millions of years left in the cycle that we are currently in within Hinduism, but it's coming to a close. Now, millions of years doesn't seem like it's coming to a close, but that's the belief. And so it's this continual cycle that like time will then end and then it will restart again. And that kind of combines with reincarnation. So the whole idea is that each individual is created and recreated repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly until you attain release. And this is called samsara, and it's that cycle of rebirth. So generally people don't remember their past life within reincarnation. Some people will say that they do, and they might. Like I mean, I have no idea. But it's the whole idea that like you kind of get that other shot, which is kind of a neat concept because, sometimes in life, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I've screwed up so much. How am I ever going to get to heaven or do these different things? But for Hindus, it's like, well, you get another shot. Now for Christians, obviously, the whole idea is that we can seek forgiveness from God, get that forgiveness, and then go into heaven, which is awesome. As long as we believe in Christ, which is really cool. But reincarnation is how Hindus kind of look at that whole concept of kind of how we have like a cycle of sinning and then getting reconciliation and then being free of sin and then sinning because we all sin. And so that's kind of like reincarnation for Hindus, okay? Now, to die without attaining liberation is considered defeat because you are still on that wheel of rebirth, but you get another shot. So you'll probably experience it again and again and again in your life. And so like this picture here is kind of like you go through different life cycles. And so like, you start as an individual and then maybe become a warrior and then you become like a teacher or a learner. And then maybe more prayerful, and then eventually kind of attaining that release. And then there's two principles that serve to connect the divine with this world. And that's how you find yourself on the cycle of rebirth, is based on your actions within your life. Then basically determine what you'll be reborn into in your next life. And that's through karma. Okay. So karma functions with that wheel of rebirth, and it literally means the action of deeds. So everybody talks about, oh, karma will get you and things like that. So it's basically the law of cause and effect. If you do good things, you will have good things happen to you. If you do bad things will happen to you. Maybe not right away, but karma will eventually come back. Okay. And so every action produces a justified effect based on its moral worthiness. And so eventually everyone's going to die. Death is certain, right? Everybody will die eventually. And so the whole idea is that based on our actions within this life, determine what our actions in the next life will be. And this can be anybody. This goes through deities, through supernatural beings, through humans, through animals, things like that. Now, only humans have the will to affect the status of their karma. So it's our free will that kind of impacts that karma. And so it's the easy answer to why do bad things happen to bad people? And it's because, well, you won't get away with it. Either in this life or the next, you won't get away with it. Okay. And dharma, which again, we'll talk about more next week, is basically the ethical duty based on divine order of life. So in order to have good karma, you have to have good dharma. So you have to follow what your duty is in life to have better karma. So if you decide to just ignore your duty or to ignore like kind of the rules that you are meant to follow, then that will then contribute to the karma. So I want you to watch these videos, the history of Hinduism. And then this one is actually really unique. My friend showed it to me. She's a teacher at St. Joe's, and it's basically talking about how we can help each other within the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I wanted you to watch it because it combines with alms, but it also combines with karma, which is really the same type of concept. So complete the assignment. So the assignment is called, you've all heard of karma. And basically what I want you to do is think of 3 things you can do throughout the week that would basically help give you good karma. And so this can be alms, and so you can use it for your final project within June, but you're basically looking at like, what can I do for people around me in a safe, physically distant way? To basically look at the idea of karma, because giving is contagious. And I think that's on the next slide. I want you guys to think about doing good things for the sake of doing good things. Just do a good thing because it's good to do. When you give to people, they want to give back to you. They want to give to others. They want to help others. And that's a really amazing thing. And it's something we could all use more of right now. So those are the things I want you to look at, and it will help you with your almsgiving assignment. So best of luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing your responses because I think it'll be really interesting. It'll be fun to mark and look at and stuff like that. And if you have any questions, just send me an email or message me on Teams or on the Google Classroom, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay? That sounded like a answering machine message. Anyways, bye guys. Have a good week.